A forgotten battlefield trick once doubled artillery accuracy overnight. No secret weapon, no new equipment, just one gunner, a crooked shell, and a split-second decision that broke every rule in the manual. What he discovered looked wrong, sounded wrong, and should never have worked, yet it changed the fight instantly. September 12, 1943. Near Salerno, Corporal Evan Mercer presses his cheek into the cold steel of the M2A1 howitzer. Dawn is still a rumor. The Italian hills are nothing but jagged shadows, and somewhere beyond them, German guns feel their way toward the beachhead. Their first shells walk closer. One hits short. The next lands behind a gun line. The third whistles, so low he feels its breath before it slams into the ridge and showers the crew with dirt. He freezes for half a second. That half second tells him today might be the one that breaks them. Another shell screams in. He yells for cover. The blast rolls over the gun like a fist. The crew coughs dust, checks limbs, and drags themselves back to their posts. Evan wipes grit from the sight housing. His hands shake, but the work steadies him. Range is updated. Bearing is locked. Yet every round they fire drifts wide. Every correction seems to make things worse. And every miss inches the German battery closer to chewing through their line. The gun captain shouts for faster loading. They swing into motion. Shell. Charge. Ram. Fire. The recoil slams back. Smoke hisses out the breech. Evan peers through the sight, but the round impacts far off, kicking up a useless puff of earth. 12% hit rate. He knows that number too well. High command calls it acceptable. It doesn't feel acceptable when the enemy is walking fire toward you. He adjusts elevation again, but the wind in the valley has teeth. The air current at the tree line keeps shifting. Their fuses seem to arm late. And the shells themselves, fresh off a rush supply ship, feel inconsistent. Nothing behaves the way the manual promises it should. A shout rises from the next gun over. Someone has been hit by shrapnel. Medics run. Evan tightens his jaw. The pressure builds behind his eyes. He thinks of home for one beat, then crushes the thought. No room for it now. Another German round blows a crater where their ammunition crates sat 10 minutes ago. They move the next stack closer to the slope, half hidden. The sun peeks over the ridge and paints the smoke orange. The German guns are faster today, adjusting quicker, bracketing them with brutal precision. If their own accuracy stays at 12%, they won't last the morning. Evan loads another shell. He notices something as he slides it in. The fuse isn't seated quite the same as the others. It's tilted a hair, almost invisible. He runs his thumb along the rotating band. A faint line of grease catches his skin. He has loaded hundreds of these, maybe thousands. By feel, he knows when something is off. He stops. The gun captain snaps at him to keep moving. But he keeps looking. A shell whistles overhead, so close it seems to scratch the roof of the sky. Dirt sprays their helmets. Evan yanks the shell back out. The captain starts to scold him, but Evan speaks quickly. It's seating wrong. The band is dragging high. The captain gives him a look that says not now. But Evan is already checking the crate. He pulls another round. Same issue. He grabs a third. Same thing. The band rides a fraction higher on one side, enough to tilt the shell when ramming. Another burst hits the tree line, ripping branches like paper. Evan's mind sprints. The tilt could throw the shell off axis. It could delay arming. It could cause flight drift. He looks around. Dust. Moisture. Temperature shifts between night and morning. The grease distributors were working in the dark earlier, half frozen, half exhausted. Maybe they wiped the shells unevenly. Maybe the fuses seated slightly crooked when the supply team packed them in a hurry. A tiny imperfection that multiplies into huge misses downrange. He lifts one shell, turns it slowly, and finds the lowest point of the rotating band. He lines that point downward. A simple rotation. Nothing in the manual about it. Nothing they were ever told to do. But if gravity pulls the mass evenly during ramming, if the tilt faces down instead of sideways, maybe it stabilizes. Or maybe it does nothing. Incoming. Another whistle. The ground shakes. He decides to try it anyway. Let me load this one. Evan doesn't wait for permission. He rotates the shell, so the low band sits at the bottom, slides it in smooth, and rams it clean. No drag. No tilt. He steps back. The captain fires. Evan races to the site. The round arcs. Hits. Not perfect, but close. Closer than anything they've done all morning. A small hit, but a spark of hope. He adjusts the next shot based on that impact. 2 mils left. Slight elevation increase. If the shell orientation matters as much as he thinks, this might hold. Do it again, he tells the loader. The loader doesn't argue. Second round in. Fired. It lands even closer. A real strike. Smoke rises from the German hillside. They hit an emplacement. The crew looks at Evan, half stunned. He grabs another shell and rotates it. The others copy him. Their hands move faster. Shells click into position with a new rhythm. A simple motion, but now deliberate. Downward band. Straight fuse seat. Smooth ram. They fire again. Hit. Another correction. Fire. Hit. Their 20-ton howitzer suddenly feels alive, as if it had been waiting for someone to treat it right. Evan feels his pulse racing. Sweat stings his eyes. The German battery tries to shift positions, but they're slower now. Their pattern breaks. One of their guns goes silent after a direct hit. The valley echoes with American fire that actually lands where it should. A hint of confidence spreads through the crew. They reload faster, but not sloppy. Evan adjusts elevation with small, careful turns. Dust drifts from the trail spades every time the gun recoils. The air smells like cordite and burnt dirt. Their movements settle into something close to choreography. Every 30 seconds, another micro-danger. A ricochet. A spotting round too close. A crate tipping. A medic shouting for bandages. But the hits keep coming. A runner from battalion command arrives, ducking low. "You're hammering them," he shouts. "How did you get your accuracy up?" Evan doesn't answer. He's too focused on the sight. A final correction. He wants the next round to land right on the German command post they've been chasing for half an hour. He signals the crew. They load one more shell with a new orientation. The captain fires. The hillside erupts. The runner stares. The captain looks back at Evan, trying not to show relief. But there is no time to celebrate. The Germans are still firing, just not as fast. Evan wipes sweat from his chin and reaches for another shell. His fingers tremble with adrenaline. This morning started with fear. Now it feels like something else. Not victory. Not yet. But momentum. And in a battle where every second costs lives, momentum is everything. Evan keeps moving because stopping might invite the fear back. He lines up another shell. Rotates it. Feels the balance in his palms. A small fix. A quiet idea born in chaos. One gunner. One moment. And a battlefield slowly tilting in their favor. He doesn't know if anyone else will adopt the method. He doesn't know if it will hold under pressure. He only knows they're still alive, still firing, still hitting. For now, that is enough. The next German shell whistles in. He grabs the lanyard. Stand ready. The next blast rolls over the ridge and shakes loose a curtain of dust. Corporal Evan Mercer blinks through the grit and stays on the site, refusing to give the German gunners even a heartbeat of advantage. Their pressure hasn't eased. If anything, the enemy realizes someone on this side is punching back harder than before. That alone makes them angry. Angry gunners fire faster. A shell detonates near the tree line. Splinters hiss across the gun pit. Someone curses. Someone else ducks late. Evan doesn't look. Not yet. He keeps his focus tight. Range 2770. Adjusted for wind. His voice cracks from smoke, but it carries. The captain nods, skin gray with exhaustion. Loader and rammer move like they're sprinting through mud, but the new orientation technique gives them something solid to cling to. A ritual. A reason. A slim promise that their next shot might actually matter. Evan takes the next shell himself. He rotates it without thinking. The line of grease on the rotating band glints in the thin morning light. He presses it down with both thumbs, making sure the low edge sits perfectly at the bottom. Send it. The shot barks across the valley. The recoil hammers their shoulders. Dust leaps off the sandbags. Evan rides the vibrations like a man trying to stay upright on a trembling bridge. He shifts his eye back to the sight. Impact. Good. Not perfect, but close enough to force the German crew to shift again. A micro-hook pulls the tension tighter. The enemy's retaliation comes quick. A shell lands so near the trail spades that the air pressure slaps Evan across the jaw. He tastes blood. His ears sing. He crouches, breath ragged. For a second, a small second, the shaking in his hands returns. If he falters, the crew falters. If the crew falters, the German guns chew straight through them. He steadies his hands on the sight housing, lets the metal cool him, and forces his voice to steady. Let's keep going. The captain studies him for a moment. It's not approval. It's recognition. The recognition of a man who understands that survival sometimes depends on doing something unorthodox and hoping the world forgives you for it. Another round is ready. They ram it home cleanly. Evan sees the improvement immediately. No tilt, no scrape, no last-second wobble. The gun feels different this way. More honest. Fire. The shell arcs, then vanishes behind the ridge. A second later, a black plume curls upward. A direct hit on a dugout. Someone on the crew gives a brief laugh, the kind born from terror pushing against relief. The captain snaps them back to focus. Load again. They work faster, but the danger rises with their speed. Ammunition crates are dropped open, stacks leaning at odd angles. Charges spill onto the dirt. The Germans bracket their position tighter. Each incoming shriek hooks the gut. No one dares think about how long they can hold out. Evan takes another shell, turns it, and stops. This one's worse. The band is uneven enough that even gravity can't settle it smoothly. It could ruin the pattern they've built. He wipes the edge clean with his sleeve, trying to even the grease. A tiny correction. It still tilts, but not as badly. Close enough. He loads it. Fire. The shot sails wide, but still hits near an enemy supply area. Enough to rattle them. Enough to buy seconds. Seconds are worth gold out here. The sun climbs higher, burning off the haze. Smoke and morning mist twist together above the valley like two stubborn ghosts. Their gun pit feels smaller by the minute. Every man breathes hard, coated in sweat mixed with powder. Evan adjusts for wind again. The gusts are changing. Heat rising from burning brush on the German side creates a shimmer. Their fuses behave differently in hot air. He knows this from training, but training never faced shifting combat winds funneling through a narrow valley. He recalculates. Elevation down one tick. Charge reduced. Bearing nudged right. He signals their next shot. The captain fires. The valley answers with a heavy boom. Their round lands deep inside the German battery's fallback line. A crewman on their ridge shouts with excitement, but a new sound cuts him off. A whine. Low. Fast. Wrong. Evan dives. The shell detonates behind them, flipping a supply crate and showering the pit with fragments. One piece punches into the sandbag next to Evan's knee, lodging there with a dull thud. Another rips open the side of a charge bag. The loader falls to his knees, gasping. His helmet is dented, but he's breathing. Get him up, Evan orders. His voice is firmer than he feels. The medic arrives and drags the loader to a shallow depression for treatment. They bring in a replacement loader from the neighboring gun. The new man's hands shake, but he copies the rotation technique without asking why. Word spreads fast in desperate places. Evan aims again. Another correction. Another gamble. Smoke stings his eyes, but he keeps going. The enemy fire shifts. It's slower now. More desperate. Their pattern is broken. Their shots scatter across the hillside instead of walking evenly toward the American line. Evan can almost sense their frustration from across the valley. He allows himself a slow breath. Just one. Then another incoming blast tears across the sky and slams into the ravine, knocking loose a sheet of rock that tumbles toward their gun. The crew scrambles aside as stones thud around them. A slab the size of a footlocker lands inches from Evan's boot. Another micro-hook. Another reminder that the battle hasn't forgiven them yet. He looks at the captain. We finish this, Evan says quietly. The captain nods once, grim and determined. They load another shell. Rotate. Seat. Ram. Fire. The round streaks true, guided by all the frantic calculations Evan has layered into the shot. It hits the upper ridge of the German gun line. A secondary explosion answers. Ammunition cooking off. A bright, violent bloom. The crew shields their faces from the flash. When the echo fades, fewer German guns fire back. Evan wipes soot from the aiming scope. The metal is warm now, warm like a heartbeat. He knows the breakthrough isn't secure. Not yet. The enemy is wounded, not broken. Reinforcements could appear. A counter battery could lock in. Anything can happen. But something undeniable has shifted. Their accuracy isn't luck anymore. It's repeatable. It's climbing. And with every hit, their survival inches forward. Evan glances at the next crate of shells. The grease lines glisten like faint signatures waiting to be rewritten. He reaches for one and turns it with practiced care. "Let's keep pressure on them," he says. Then he goes back to the site where the next decision waits. The ridge looks different now. Smoke coils upward in thicker streams, some black, some gray, each marking a German gun that no longer threatens them. Corporal Evan Mercer keeps his eye on the site, refusing to let the small taste of progress dull his edge. Their position is still exposed. Their margin for error is still razor thin. A gust of hot wind pushes across the valley. It carries ash and the faint crackle of burning timber. Evan adjusts the sight again. The heat is distorting the air. Targets shimmer. Lines bend. The valley almost breathes. Another micro hook, and another reminder that the world on the other side of the site is always shifting. Range updated, he mutters. The captain wipes sweat off his brow, streaking soot across his forehead. Then send the next one. The new loader, still pale but steady, hands Evan a shell. Evan turns it in his palms. The rotating band has a ridge of grime on one side, likely from the rough transit over uneven ground earlier. He scrapes it clean with his thumb, then positions the low edge down. The motion is so natural now that it's as if the gun had been designed for this very ritual. They ram the round into place. Fire. The recoil thunders through the pit. Evan tracks the arc through the haze. Impact. A low, rolling explosion. Closer to perfect, but the enemy isn't finished. A battery farther along the ridge wakes up. Their fire starts slow, testing the range. Evan hears the first probing whistle. Then a second. The third lands close enough to kick dust into his teeth. He spits and keeps working. The Germans aren't guessing randomly. They're adjusting. Someone over there is sharp and methodical. The same kind of mind Evan recognizes in himself. A duel has begun between unseen operators separated by a valley and a shared understanding of ballistics. The next shell they send lands near a cluster of enemy crates. A plume of smoke rises. Shouts echo faintly across the gap. Evan tightens his jaw. He knows he can push harder. "Bring me the next one." The loader obeys. Evan turns the shell and catches something new, a faint dent along the rotating band. It's shallow, barely there, but enough to matter, enough to alter flight. He looks at the captain. "This one's bad. We don't have the luxury to cherry pick," the captain snaps. Evan considers the dent again. A bad shell can ruin their pattern, lose their gains, but time is bleeding away. German rounds shriek overhead. One impacts, so close it shakes every rib in Evan's chest. He makes a choice. He rotates the shell so the dent faces dead down. If the flaw must ride somewhere, let gravity bury it instead of letting it pull the projectile sideways. He loads it. A breath. Fire. The shell wobbles in flight, but stabilizes near the peak. It lands wide, yet still close enough to disrupt German movement. Not a perfect strike, but not a catastrophic miss. The captain gives him a curt nod. Not praise, just acceptance. Evan resets his grip on the sight, feeling the heat radiate from its metal. Sweat drips down his neck. His shirt clings to him. Every breath tastes of dust. The valley erupts again as two German guns fire almost in sync. Their shots land closer and closer. The rival gunner is fast, very fast. "We need to shut that one down," Evan says. "Then pick your target." He scans the ridge through the shimmering air. Every shape shifts. Every shadow hides a possibility. He studies the rise, the slope, the pockets of brush. A small ridgelet catches his attention. There's smoke curling from behind it. Subtle, Controlled. Exactly where he'd place a gun if he wanted to stay hidden. Left ridge. 30 meters below the outcrop. The captain trusts him by now. Do it. Evan motions for another shell. Rotates it. Seats it. They ram home. His calculations tighten in his mind. Air temperature. Powder burn. Wind funnel. Shell mass. Fire. The gun bucks. Evan leans into the sight. The round dips behind the ridgelet, then flashes in a burst that rolls up the slope. For a moment, no one breathes. Then the return fire pauses. Just for a second, a small silence. A hook that snaps into place. Evan feels his pulse climb. We hit near them. Near isn't enough, the captain says. Evan adjusts again. A finer tweak this time. Barely a sliver. He takes another shell. Turns it. Feels the weight shift in his hands. He makes the tiniest correction with his thumb along the fuse seat, aligning it so perfectly it feels ceremonial. Loaded. Fired. This one flies smooth. True. A straight, confident arc. A sharp explosion answers from the ridgelet. Then a second blast, ammunition cooking off. A brighter bloom rises. A pillar of smoke signals the end of one more German gun. The crew exhales together. Even the captain lets his shoulders drop for a heartbeat. But the victory is interrupted by a sudden crack above them. A sniper's round snaps past, carving a line through the air. A fresh danger. A new angle of threat. Evan ducks instinctively. The bullet hits a rock and ricochets into the brush. Sniper in the trees, someone shouts. The captain yells for the rifleman nearby to pin the shooter down. The fire is immediate. Rifles cracking, branches shattering, birds exploding from the canopy. The sniper vanishes into the chaos. Evan forces his focus back to the gun. The next shell sits waiting. The loader's hands shake again, but he steadies them against the crate. Evan takes the shell gently, the way a surgeon might handle an instrument. You're doing fine, Evan tells him quietly. Another hook, a distant rumble. A new set of German guns rolling into position. Fresh metal. Fresh danger. Evan lifts his chin. We keep pressure on them before they can settle. The captain nods. Your call. Evan turns the next shell. The grease line shines like a string of warning lights. He lowers the band's heavy side. Every detail tightens the shot. Every breath leads the moment. They fire. The recoil crashes. Smoke blankets them. Evan peers through it, searching for the signal. A rising column of dust. Then fire. Then a spreading plume. Another hit. Their pattern holds. The enemy's firing rate slows again. Evan feels the balance of the fight shifting. Not finished, but tilting. The way a battlefield sometimes leans just slightly toward one side before fully falling. He wipes the grit from his sight and reaches for another shell. All right, he says. Let's finish breaking their line. The valley settles into a harsh, uneasy quiet. Smoke drifts in long, torn ribbons. Most of the German guns have fallen silent, but Corporal Evan Mercer doesn't let himself believe it's over. Silence in war never means safety. It means someone is deciding what to try next. He stays locked to the sight. Every breath comes slow and shallow, the way a man breathes when he knows the next second might change everything. His shoulders ache from bracing through the recoil, but he doesn't step back. The captain scans the ridge. One more battery might still be out there. Evan nods. Then we find it before it finds us. The loader hands him a fresh shell. Evan turns it in his palms. He checks the band, checks the fuse seat, checks the weight shift. The small ritual has become instinct, the only steady thing in a morning full of chaos. A distant thud breaks the quiet. Then another. The enemy is testing the range again. Evan listens to the timing between impacts. The cadence is slow and uncertain. Someone on the other side is firing blind, maybe out of desperation, maybe scrambling for new coordinates. Each incoming round lands farther from the last. They've rattled the enemy harder than he realized. But desperation can be deadly. It makes gunners unpredictable. It makes them bold. A shot hits the far slope and rolls down in a plume of dust. Another lands short of the creek bed. Evan studies the pattern and traces the firing angle in his mind. He picks out a shady fold in the ridge where the echoes seem to bend. There, he says, behind that V-shaped hollow. The captain lifts his binoculars but can't see through the smoke. You're shot. Evan sets the next shell into the cradle of his arm. He rotates it slowly, letting his thumbs feel every flaw. The rotating band is smooth. The fuse sits clean. No tilt. No drag. Good. He lines the low edge downward and nods to the loader. They ram the round home. Fire. The howitzer kicks back hard. Evan leans into the sight before the dust clears. The round arcs through shimmering heat and disappears behind the hollow. A distant, heavy explosion answers. Not perfect, but it bites deep. The German reply comes instantly. A frantic shell that whistles low and detonates on the opposite ridge. The echo punches through his chest like a second heartbeat. We need another, Evan says. The loader brings him around with shaking fingers. Evan steadies the man's hands just long enough to stop the tremor. Then he rotates the shell himself. This one has a faint scrape across the band. He smooths it as best he can and lowers the heavy edge. Loaded. Fired. The shot lands with a sharper blast, pushing a wave of dust up the slope. When it clears, the hollow belches smoke. But one last German gun fires back. A single shot. Fast. Accurate. Deadly. The whistle starts high, drops fast, and rips the air apart as it hits just beyond their pit. The concussion knocks Evan sideways. Sandbags burst open. The loader falls against a crate. The captain hits the dirt and comes up bleeding from one eyebrow. Evan drags himself to the site, coughing through the haze. The rival gun crew is good. Too good. They fired that shot with precision despite everything burning around them. Evan braces his elbows against the frame to stop the shaking. One more, he tells the captain. We end it now. The captain looks at him for a long second. Then he nods. Do it. The last shell waits in the crate. Evan lifts it and turns it in his hands. He feels every groove, every curve. This one matters more than all the others. If his method fails here, the rival gunner will get another chance. And another, until the valley belongs to them again. He rotates the band. Downward. Perfect. He slides it into the breech. The rammer drives it home with a hollow thud. Evan adjusts for wind one final time. The air shimmers. Heat bends the horizon. But he knows the pattern now. He knows the rhythm of this valley. He finds the angle where instinct and calculation meet. Fire. The gun roars. Smoke swallows the pit. Evan leans into the sight, heart pounding. The shell clears the ridge. The arc is true. A heartbeat passes. Then the ridge explodes in a violent bloom that blooms wider and brighter than any before. A column of smoke twists upward like it's being pulled by invisible hands. Debris rains down the far slope. The rival gun falls silent. Completely. Finally, the crew doesn't cheer. They just breathe, deep, shaky breaths that feel like the first in hours. The captain drops to one knee and lets out a rough sigh. The loader sits back, helmet crooked, staring at the ridge as if waiting to be sure it won't rise again. Evan steps away from the sight. His legs feel strange, weightless. His ears ring. His hands are black with grease and dust, but his focus stays sharp. Their accuracy today wasn't luck. It wasn't a miracle. It was a small idea born in chaos, repeated until the impossible became normal. The captain claps a hand on his shoulder. Whatever you figured out, it saved all of us. Evan nods, but says nothing. The valley still smokes. The danger isn't gone, but a small, vital corner of the front now stands because one gun crew learned to load their shells a different way. He looks at the next crate waiting in the shadows. The grease lines glisten faintly. Soon, someone will ask how their accuracy jumped from 12% to 67% in a single morning. The answer will be simple. A gunner looked closer, and the battlefield changed.